almost hitting the floor. That was the wake up call. We need to think differently. I would argue that most of our competitors had the chance to build what we did in the past, but none have done it. If you want to buy Bitcoin, you need to set up an exchange. It's like if you want to eat a banana, you need to have a farm to actually have the product, which doesn't make any sense. You need to have grocers. You need to have a more convenient way to distribute the product. My obsession to make this simple was something from the very beginning. When you do want to change life, you need to walk the street. In Belo, with 500,000 users are using crypto every day without knowing they are using crypto.
Manu, great to have you here finally.
Yeah, thanks, Tommy, for inviting me.
I know you've been in Brazil last week and you were flying out to New York today, so we had basically half a day while you're in Buenos Aires in the Belo offices.
Yeah, that's right. So having a few times with the team here, getting to the latest and moving to meet with investors in US.
Cool, amazing. Let's kick it off. We've known each other now for a few years. You went to my same school, but you were a bit older than me. We reconnected in 2020, I think, pandemic year. I remember meeting you when you were starting Belo, kind of in a PowerPoint. You joined the Latitud fellowship, and you had this vision of basically making crypto really impact the life of an average Latin American, an average Argentinian, an average Brazilian, what you called, I think, at some point, Doña Rosa, right, which is like the on Mary, impact them on everyday life, right? Maybe with them not necessarily knowing they were using a product with crypto on the back. I feel like these last 4 years, the product iterated a lot. Of course, you scaled a lot. The customer profile has become way more clear, but in a way, the vision remains very similar, right? Why don't you tell us a little bit about what the vision was, what the vision is today for Belo?
Yes, for those that maybe don't know me, I've been in the crypto space for the last 13 years now, so it's been a while. And my critique, to the industry was we have invented something that it's, game changer in a way. It's a new paradigm. But on the flip side, we haven't done much in actually taking this into the hands of the actual users. It was more of the AV club, I call it, So group of nerds using the technology just for the sake of technology. And that's cool. And that's, promising in everything around R&D. But when you do want to change life, you need to walk the street. And I think what this vision of Belo, of, believing in crypto every day, it doesn't say much, but it's like a sounding drum that it's, in our heads all the time. And maybe with different, let's say, flavors, because some people want to actually access the asset, but the vast majority of people, similarly to Linux, just use the technology and doesn't care about what is happening in the back. And I think in Belo, we have obviously tried a lot of things, and 500,000 users are using crypto every day without knowing that they are using crypto. And for me, that's kind of, we are reaching that point of saying, okay, we are near our kind of the desired point that maybe we draw 4 years ago.
Amazing. And I know in a few minutes, you told us more about how that path wasn't a straight line, right? It was a winding road in terms of, okay, how do I bring that vision down to earth? But quickly, Manu, I mean, you were an OG in the crypto space in Argentina, which of course is one of the most interesting ecosystems in the world, in Web3. Tell us a little bit about what you did before and how those experiences brought you to this insight. Okay, the way to bring crypto to everyday life is with something like, and maybe at that point, tell us a little bit more about what Bell is doing today.
Yeah, sure. So I started early on while I was working at Accenture, get to know Bitcoin by chance because we were building something else, and Bitcoin was the best solution to the problem that we have. That was in 2012. And the first iteration that we did, our first startup, was called originally Crypto Cueva, and then we changed it to Conecta Bitcoin. For those that do not know, Cueva in Argentina, it's the where people buy the non-official dollars, so the black shops for dollars. Although the website was not a Cueva per se, so basically it was a marketplace for people allowing to buy and sell crypto. We allow a lot of brokers that wanted to put the bid and the ask, and we basically provide some level of safety, allowing to have an escrow in those operations. That was the first one. We started, scale pretty fast. It was the Chipre crisis at the time, so the demand for Bitcoin escalated quite rapidly, and then capital controls in Argentina. Then we built a Cryptocambios, which was one of the first Bitcoin brokers in Argentina, in which you could see the price of Bitcoin in a web page. And then I would say the last, great milestone that I had before Belo was Bitex, which was one of the first Bitcoin exchanges in LATAM. We expanded into 4 countries: Argentina, Chile, Paraguay, Uruguay. And we did some crazy stuff like connecting the first bank globally to the Bitcoin network to do cross-border payments way before stablecoins were in the market. So, doing a lot of hustling with the technology and trying to bring this to, as you mentioned, the old Mary, Odonia Rosa. My obsession to make this simple was something from the very beginning. Maybe because I have a background in biology and I think in systems in different way than maybe technology or finance. But my experience was that if we are in finance, and I don't know why this happened, if you want to buy Bitcoin, you need to set up an exchange. And from my point of view, it's like if you want to eat a banana, you need to have a farm, to actually have the product, which doesn't make any sense. You need to have groceries. You need to have a more convenient way to distribute the product. And there was this push from every company in the ecosystem to actually create an exchange. And from my point of view, we need to do something more humane in a way. And I think the idea of Belo started way before Belo, in a way. I couldn't do it before. I was after Bitex that I did an exit, that I have time and my mind clear to actually, devote my time to build this and set up a team which have the same ideas that I do.
And then that's when we had the luck to reconnect.
Yeah.
Couple of years ago.
And we were the first batch, a batch 0, I think, from Latitud.
You were part of the first batch of Latitud, absolutely. And
yeah.
It's funny, I had totally forgotten you were a biologist, but I think out of the box thinking made you build Belo in a different way, with a lot of attention to, with a different culture, with a different kind of brand building, and we'll talk about that a bit later. Let's talk a little bit of the product journey. And the product and the ICP, right, the ideal customer profile. You had a few kind of iterations of this that brought you to today, right? Maybe I think, especially for early stage founders going through the 0 to 1, obsessing about that first product, I think it would be pretty cool if you can tell us a little bit about how you started, how you find eventually that kind of freelancer ICP, and what are you seeing today also with Pix and with a few new use cases and products?
Mixed feelings about this, because this idea of the ICP, I think it's kind of, maybe I'm going against all the literature in the industry. But
go against, that's your side.
But
yeah.
I'm a contrarian by heart, I tell about this all the time. It's Belo, it's a marketplace. You need 2 sides of the business to actually operate. But let's go to the origins. When we first started, we have like this idea that we either will serve. Let's position ourselves in Argentina in 2020 also, so high inflation, capital controls, crypto boom. So we're looking into up-and-coming professionals, people that were looking to save or hedge against inflation. So stablecoins were a great way to do it. We were talking about household wives, which in general in Latin America, women are the ones that manage the finance in the house. So, talking to them. And last but not least, freelancers, which this idea of Latin America is a power hub for, contractors, remote workers, fractional workforce, living in Latam, but for working from abroad. And in this last one, it's where we found out that the pain point for bringing money from abroad was immense. The pain point in terms of time, of cost, in terms of the red tape, how many providers you need to do. And kind of the aha moment was, okay, we need a one-stop shop in which we could give this type of user a really simple way, not only to bring money home, but actually to use it. Because many competitors were handing off the user to a local provider to actually go to the grocery and buy a banana. We want users in Belo to get paid from John Smith in the US, and in the same second go and buy a banana with that money. And I think that simplicity, that way of thinking money globally, digitally, digital first, and with the user in the front, and not this. And that's where I will go against the typical ICP, because sometimes ICP only mention like one part of the process, which obviously you will be doing really well. But I think you need to think of the life cycle of the user, the journey of the user, and how they live their life, and how, in this case, Belo can improve their lives. And I think that's kind of the approach that we are taking. Obviously, we have a lot of work to be done yet, but that's kind of the approach that we are taking in that sense.
You are following part of the kind of the literature, no? Right, in terms of really listening to the customer. And I think that part of how you did the whole journey from bringing the money to then helping them kind of off-ramp pay in their everyday use cases in Argentina or in other countries in Latam, I think that pulled you apart.
But for example, we did a partnership with Tapi, which is also part of the Latitud community,
and Pomelo eventually.
Pomelo.
Yeah.
So I think for Pomelo, we are the first client. I think for Tapi, almost the same. And it's, once again, when you think about the building blocks of the financial life of the user. So being able to pay, in my case, I don't know, my daughter at school, or the credit card, or the electricity bill, which is connected to, the invoicing that I did to John Smith in the US, or to someone in Europe, that's pretty awesome. That's why I want to kind of broaden the whole experience.
Very cool. You briefly mentioned stablecoins in your last answer, and maybe it's worth doubling click. Of course, you've been using them for almost since the beginning of Belo, almost, right? We've seen in 2024 as they go mainstream with Stripe's acquisition, with more and more companies in Latam doing it B2B, B2C. All funds in Belo wallets are converted to USDC, right? Could you talk a little bit more about the importance of keeping your money, your funds in a stablecoin, and how do you see crypto? Yeah, I would say Web3 in general, kind of the infrastructure of Web3 impacting lives, if you want, in Latam and maybe in Argentina in particular, right? Where we know we're leading with high volatility, moving FX rates, inflation. I would love to hear kind of Manu, the biologist, his macroeconomist perspective for a couple of minutes at least.
Yeah, so first of all, I mean, stablecoins, crypto, Web3, you can think about this in different layers. Obviously, one is, the whole, let's say, database / infrastructure in which you are building stuff. Then it's the asset per se, USDC, USDT. In a way, this is, a few years back, you need to be in the known to have an account in the US to hold dollars. Now you can hold dollars with a smartphone, and that's specifically that. I mean, USDC is a tokenized dollar in your phone, and that's it, and you don't need to open an account in the US to actually hold dollars. And that's not only mind-blowing in a way, but it's game changer in the other way. I mean, take into account that right now, David Sachs is actually pushing for, in this case, Tether, to be more active, because it means that if they distribute more stablecoins to more people globally, more people will be buying more T-bills at the end of the day. So they are distributing their debt with more people globally.
That's another layer, right? The geopolitical kind of implications of...
Yeah, when they talk about, the end of the dollar, I think the end of the dollar, as we know it, might be reaching, but we are seeing the born of another dollar. And then you have the application layer, which is, for example, when you receive money from abroad with Belo, you receive USDC into your account. That USDC, it's automatically paying a yield. It's giving you a yield, which is produced by T-bills in the back. So we are allocating money in, for example, a protocol which it's automatically giving you the yield of the T-bills from the dollar. So we are tokenizing, those T-bills from the US Treasury, are giving that to the user. I mean, and that use case, it's pretty uncommon if you think about this. It's really difficult for, or even people in Latin America overall, to access to those type of products. And I think that's the importance of stablecoins or blockchain technology per se. You basically erase any type of barrier. It's totally borderless. It's global. It's 24/7. And I think that the most magic thing about this is that it gives you the chance to start building a new reality. And I think that is where we start to basically create a new world which we haven't seen before. And we are pretty, kind of eager to see what shape the world will get eventually. What we have done with pigs, and sorry, maybe I'm just moving this faster with the questions, but wasn't possible in the past. Being allowing a Latin American user to travel to Brazil and pay as a local, thanks to stablecoins and integration with pigs, it's quite unique. And the whole things with RTP, both in Brazil, India, China. This is a global
trend or tailwind.
Yeah, it's something that will change, how payments are gonna be done eventually. And I think Belo has, secured a good place in the frontier of all these developments.
Totally, I agree. No, and it's, as you say, it's like it's not the death of the dollar; it's the death of the previous system for which an individual or a company access the dollar. Right? It might be the death of dollar denominated bank accounts in large banks. No, not the death, but like the rise of a new reality, right? With less friction, with less borders. That's cool, Manu. And again, thinking of early stage founders here, like you were basically running all these different experiments, right? With customer types, different products. How did you measure product success in the last 3 years? User adoption, retention, how this translated into bottom line.
Yeah.
How did you manage to measure that and then prioritize?
I wouldn't say it's easy, and to be honest, this is my first time doing actual B2C product, massive, B2C product. And I see these kind of different benchmarks, which sometimes are pretty biased to B2B SaaS companies, My first reaction to which product or what to prioritize, it's around what I need in my life. Something that I will use, something that will change my life, etc. And obviously then talk to the user, and I think there is no given definitions by default. Recently I was seeing this, looking at this Mark Randolph, the first CEO from Netflix. And these guys, were iterating all the time. I was experimentation over experimentation. And there is no magic, it's just do it every day, just hammer the nail one and hit that nail every day until something will happen. And it's that, let's say, that variable, which is time, which basically determines if what you're doing is right or wrong. At least that's what helped us. Obviously, as I mentioned, the feedback from the user, it's crucial, but you need to, and this in our case, for example, not being too much, since we were trying to build a product for the broader audience and not just the crypto people, we need to be really cautious about not focusing too much on the demands of small segment of users, because you might be biased, in some way. That process in that way and be, really data driven and data informed, is super important. One, I would recommend this to try to have a really good data team in your company from scratch, because that will change, how you operate. Gut feeling, it's crucial at first, and your vision, but then you need to basically feed your model with data and take decisions accordingly.
And it seems that in that process of experimentation, some stuff has been working, right? You closed January 2025 with over almost 70 million in revenue run rate, staying profitable since October 2023, right? And having raised, and I think this is one of the most outstanding things about what you've done with Belo, having raised only 4.2 million in total funding for the company since it was born, right? Which of course puts you quite apart from a lot of the companies that were born in the same period you were born, the zero interest rate bull market, and that of course raised a lot of money, even with no product market fit, right? First of all, congrats for that. It's been amazing to be a very small part of the journey on the sidelines, and learning from you and seeing you scale the company. I would love to hear how you did it, especially on the part of capital efficiency, right? What was the key? And I know you were talking about this. You basically, due to the context, due to external conditions, due to some mistakes of your own, you had to build it this way. It wasn't a choice, right, in a way. I would love to hear your main learnings of kind of building this in a context of scarcity of resources, right?
Yeah. So obviously, I think we are the results of our mistakes. Almost, hitting the floor, and that was the wake up call. Saying after making a shit ton of mistakes and saying, okay, guys, if we don't change the trajectory, we are gonna die, and we don't want to die, and we want to prevail and scale and become a global leader. We need to think differently. And I think that happened in 2023. In a few months, I mean in 6 months, actually, we turned the company upside down and we start to scale with a really efficient way. I think the whole scarcity, I think it's part of our DNA, even as Argentinians. We have, the famous, you can fix it with wire. It's a common, way to say that it's similar to MacGyver, in the way that he can build a bomb with just a marker and some wires. And I think that's true for us. We are pretty creative. We are really frugal in how we operate. We like small teams. We like to crush each one of the dollars, because 2021, 2022 period was really formative in the sense that we are not gonna see anything like that for the rest of our life. And we need to understand there's no free lunch. And we need to actually demonstrate and iterate and be really precise and be rigorous in how we operate. Obviously, when you have a shit ton of money and access to everything, it's much easier, but doesn't mean that you're gonna be more either creative. I would argue the opposite. I would argue that if you have resources in abundance, you start to numble in a way. So I think that's kind of feeling the choking point in a way. It's this survivor attitude emerge, and that is kind of the way that drives you. And one thing that definitely it's part of our DNA. It's we like to be really creative in not only how we manage our cost, how we manage the team, how we manage the whole operating system of the company, but also in terms of product development and designing the future. I would argue that most of our competitors had the chance to build what we did in the past, but none have done it. And I think that's kind of, hey, you're looking into the wrong direction. I think it's trying to be super focused in what you need to do in each one of the steps, but also trying to invent the future is something that definitely speaks about what Belo is and what we try to bring also to the team.
Let's double click on that, Manu. I mean, you said DNA, how you build a culture. Like since the early, you were building a crypto company from Argentina in a bear market, right? Basically you were going against the current. You were kind of rebels in my mind. You were kind of punks, no? Since the early days, you weren't doing things like everyone else, and eventually that kind of translated in my mind into the brand, right? A little bit of no fucks given, brutal honesty. Maybe share a little bit about culture. Like culture is hard to discuss culture on our podcast, but I think in Belo's case, it makes sense to spend a few minutes talking about it because you're quite different to the rest of the, let's call it, startup world, at least in LATAM. I would love to hear kind of how you thought about culture from the early days, how you iterated that, and how that basically got translated into the B2C, into the consumer brands, basically.
Yeah.
If it did.
Of course, everything. First of all, we try to be, have radical candor. So if I need to say, go fuck yourself, I'm going to say it because it's because I love you. And I think that's important to have obviously respect for the people. But I think telling the truth, it's part of being respectful for the other person. One thing that I'm trying to, I come back to this every time, and I see this a lot, is that character over characteristics. Each time that we went for characteristic, we fail in terms of people, in hiring mostly. And we fail a lot. I think no, because this guy worked in this and that, and doesn't mean anything. You have to be built differently, and we try to bring that people. People that it's fed up from what is happening in the ecosystem, of how they are being treated, and I would argue, and we try to, let's say, give them all the benefits possible in the each stage in which we are. It's not about the money. It's about the vision. It's about the mission. It's what you fight for every day. I would say that one big thing that we push all the time, and this might sounds kind of crazy, it's around the asados. The asados, which for maybe someone from not from Argentina, it's the bonfire. It's literally the place where you get together, share, know the other person. It's a ritual, and I think companies need rituals. We try to be really acid in terms of the humor. We are definitely not a woke company at all, and we try to be, kind of on contrarian in a way, respectful, obviously, and that generates, let's say, antibodies. So you start rejecting people which are not in the same line as you, which is, I think, it's a great way in a let's say, in a non-toxic way of creating a culture and surrounding yourself with people which are in the same line as yours.
Totally, and I think that's not easy, to underwrite character. But as you build the identity of Belo, quite a unique identity. I think if you find those folks with a good fit, that's an asset for sure. Getting to the kind of final stretch of the podcast before you leave to the airport and to your US roadshow. Final 3 questions. So you're at 70 million revenue run rate. 6x. Of course, kind of the Pix product is working greatly. I know it's early days and you'll keep learning a lot this year, but what can you say in terms of hitting that hyperscale, in terms of seeing revenue scale that way? What are the initial learnings? What are the initial challenges? And maybe what have been the main levers to achieve that?
What are the main fears, which is the opposite, which is obviously hitting a home run. Home runs are nice, but maybe they are not the ones that make you win the game, And I think having consistency and compounding effect in what we are doing, it's kind of my obsession, And obviously this, as I mentioned before, we are not a B2B SaaS where you are selling, a license and that scale month over month. It's like, hey, you need to convince every day that your user keeps on using you. That's kind of the most interesting and more stressful part of the B2C product, because basically you are losing users all day, every day. And there is a lot of things to be done there. And from my point of view and part of the learnings that we have from the last periods, if you have a really good product that fulfill and exceed what the user is expecting, you will keep on growing. And what helped us grow a lot has been primarily to be first in many ways, to build first the product, to be to learn about the market, and also obviously talk to the user. And if you kind of hit the market and the macro conditions is helping you, that's great, because it will help you a lot. But apart from that, trying to build new stuff all day, which adds value to the user, find a way to retain those users in a way that provide more value for them and for you too.
So ship first, listening to the customer and to the market. If the market pulls you, let it pull you, and kind of build or ship or build products upon that market.
Surf the wave. You know about surfing. Someone you need to go with the wave.
I surfed a little bit this morning. I won't lie to you. Amazing, cool. That's great. Okay, last 2 questions. What's next for Belo now? You already said it yourself. You're going out to raise a round now from potentially global investors and some Latin investors.
Yeah.
What's the vision? What is the next step? What's the vision for the company?
Yeah. So a few milestones that we reached this year. We are opening up. We have already opened operations in Brazil. We just hired our first employee there. And this year we have the plan to also start operating in Mexico. So 2025 for Belo is going to be big in that sense. We have taken, some time to actually do it, but we reached the point in which we want to go hyper speed, hyper growth. And for us, we already have done kind of the heavy lifting of what it's needed to build the financial services on top of crypto to actually allow billions of people to live in crypto every day. We have some companies that we want to acquire in the process that will help us grow in terms of team, product, and licensing. And right now it's, okay, just push the pedal and go for it. We have been in the trenches for some time, and we're in the process in which we are ready to actually accomplish this really big, ambitious project that we have. And it's one thing that I want to clarify, because I think that's kind of a systemic problem that we have in LATAM. We are a global company. Obviously, you start by LATAM. We start with Argentina. For us, it's kind of, hey, I mentioned this frequently. It's an excellent launchpad for us, but you need to go as fast as possible outside, because you need to test waters outside. And eventually, although LATAM, it's 600 million people, it's a huge market, but there's a big opportunities in other markets, like the US or even other emerging markets. So, we are putting our heads together to actually, put this into a journey and actually, execute it.
Amazing, Manu. And again, it's been a privilege to watch you start, shape, grow this company, this team, and I know this year will be a fun one. Just to close things, and again, thinking about early stage founders again. If you go back to the beginning of Belo, 4 years, 4 and a bit, what's the one advice you would have given to yourself and to other startup founders looking to make the most of their limited resources? Because you're a global company, but as you said, you started with constraints, with limited resources. Anyone that builds a company in Latin America and Argentina, we're working in an environment of limited resources. What would be that one advice?
Yeah, usually I would say that if your guts is telling you something, it's because that's the right decision. Don't lie to yourself, because we usually really love to lie to ourselves, and be super laser focused into what you want to accomplish in each stage of the process. Either if it is the idea, the product validation, the market, the team, the fundraising. This is something which is really known, but raising and executing at the same time, it's pretty difficult, and you can kind of see the leaks on that in the performance. But I think that mainly that super focused and don't lie to yourself.
Cool. So hyper focus and radical candor to others and to yourself, and I think Belo represents that. Amazing, Manu. Thanks so much. Thanks for being in the podcast with us, and best of luck in your trip.
Thanks, Tommy.
US.
Bye, everyone. See ya.